जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपी जनवल्लभा जय गिरिवराधारी। जय गिरिवराधारी। जय यशोदानंदन जय व्रज जनरंजन। जय व्रज जनरंजन। जय यमुना तीरवनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी। जय यमुना तीरवनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जय राधा कालचंजी राधा कालचंजी राधे। जय राधा गोविंद राधा गोविंद राधे। जय जगन्नाथ जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेव जय सुभद्रा। जय गौरानिताय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय। जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयं मुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतिरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठुकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3, Text 10. Akama sarvakamo va. Is that the one? It's text number 10. Chapter 3. That's what was. The group is from 1 to 12, but we are reading text 10. Prabhuji, just one second. Yes. Sorry, bro. Some people, reasonable fair. Got it, Prabhuji? Okay. Akamah sarvakamo va moksha kama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Akamaha sarvakamo va moksha kama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Anyone who wants to repeat? Akamaha sarvakamo va moksha kama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Akamaha sarvakamo va moksha kama udharadhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Akamaha sarvakamo va moksha kama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena jeta purusham param. Anyone else would like to? Okay. Transliteration. Akamaha, one who has transcendental all material desires. Sarvakamaha, one who has the sum total of material desires. Va, either. Moksha kamaha, one who desires liberation. Udaradhi, with broader intelligence. Tivrena, with great force. Bhakti yogena, by devotional service to the Lord. Yajeta, should worship. Purusham, the Lord. Param, the supreme whole. Translation. A person who has the broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the supreme whole, the personality of Godhead. Purport. The supreme personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is described in the Bhagavad Gita at Purushottamaha, or the supreme personality. It is he who can award liberation to the impersonalists by absorbing those aspirants in the Brahma Jyoti, the bodily rays of the Lord. The Brahma Jyoti is not separate from the Lord, as the glowing sun ray is not independent of the sun disk. Therefore, one who desires to merge with the supreme impersonal Brahma Jyoti must also worship the Lord by Bhakti Yoga, as recommended here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhakti Yoga is especially stressed here by all means of perfection. In the previous chapters, it has been stated that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal for both Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And in the same way, in this chapter, it is emphatically declared that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of the different varieties of worship of the different demigods. Bhakti Yoga, thus being the supreme means of self-realization, is recommended here. Everyone must therefore seriously take up the methods of Bhakti Yoga, even though one aspires for material enjoyment or liberation from material bondage. Akamaha is one who has no material desire. A living being, naturally being the part and parcel of the supreme whole, Purusham Purnam, has a natural function to serve the supreme being, just as the parts and parcels of the body or the limbs of the body are naturally meant to serve the complete body. Desireless means, therefore, not to be inert like a stone, but to be conscious of one's actual position and thus desire satisfaction only from the Supreme Lord. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained this desirelessness as Bhajaniya Parama Purusha Sukha Matra Swa Sukhatvam in his Satsarbha. This means that one should feel happy by experiencing the happiness of the Supreme Lord. This intuition of the living being is sometimes being manifested even during the conditional stage of a living being in this material world. And such intuition is expressed in the manner of altruism, philanthropy, socialism, communism, etc., by the undeveloped minds of less intelligent persons. In this mundane world, such an outlook of doing good to others in the form of society, community, family, country, or humanity is a partial manifestation of the same original feeling in which a pure living entity feels happiness by the Supreme Lord. Such superb feelings are exhibited by the damsels of Vrajabhumi for the happiness of Lord. The gopis loved the Lord without any return, and this is perfect exhibition of the akamaha spirit. Kama spirit, or the desire of one's own satisfaction, is fully exhibited in this material world, whereas the spirit of akamaha is fully exhibited in the spiritual world. Thoughts of becoming one with the Lord or being merged in the Brahma Jyoti can be exhibitions of kamaha spirit if they are desires for one's own satisfaction, to be free from material miseries. A pure devotee does not want liberation so he may be relieved from the miseries of life. Even without so-called liberation, a pure devotee is aspirant for the satisfaction of the Lord. Influenced by the Kama spirit, Arjuna declined to fight in the Kurukshetra battlefield because he wanted to save his relatives from his own satisfaction. Being a pure devotee, he agreed to fight on the instruction of the Lord because he came to his senses and realized that satisfaction of the Lord at the cost of his own satisfaction was his prime duty. Thus he became akamaha. That is a perfect stage of a living being. Udaradhi means one who has a broader outlook. People with desires for material enjoyment worship small demigods, and such intelligence is condemned by the Bhagavad Gita as Hirtagyana, the intelligence of one who has lost his senses. One cannot obtain any result from the demigods without getting sanction from the Supreme Lord. Therefore, a person with a broader outlook can see that the ultimate authority is Lord even for material benefits. Under the circumstances, one with a broader outlook, even with the desire for material enjoyment or for liberation, should take worship of the Lord directly. And everyone, whether an akamaha, a sakamaha or moksha kama, should worship the Lord with great expedience. This implies that bhakti yoga may be perfectly administered without any mixture of jnana and karma. As the unmixed sun ray is very forceful, is therefore called tivra. Similarly, unmixed bhakti yoga or hearing, chanting, etc. may be performed by one and all regardless of inner motive. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yenam Tasmai Shri Guruvaya Namaha. So, as we can see in today's shloka, what the first few shlokas in this chapter, Sukadev Goswami tells about how if one desires different benefits in this world for their own material satisfaction. Obviously, there is dharma, artha, kama, moksha, which means people will have natural tendencies to have desires to ask something. So, when a jiva has taken birth, a jivatma takes birth, irrespective whether it is a man, woman, animal, child, fish, it is only because of one's desire one takes birth. And that is why it says, Atato Brahma Jigyasaha. The birth is attributed to one's desire. Otherwise, we will not take a body. So similarly, in the Vedams, as well as in Bhagavatam, in the shlokams, previous shlokams, Sukadev Goswami explains that if one desires certain benefits, one will actually worship other devatas. And in the preceding sloka, it says one should worship Lord Vishnu or his devotee for spiritual advancement in knowledge, for perfection of. So this is where, it is said that what we desire is what we go to Bhagavan for. But of course, if one desires anything else, even if it is moksha kamaha, then one should actually worship Bhagavan. So, as explained here, the sun is always very powerful. If you see the sun, it may go, it looks at water, it may lie in the ditch, wherever it's unclean or in a clean state. But the sun's rays are so powerful that it can evaporate that water, and the same thing coming from an unclean place gets purified up and it is coming back as rain. Similarly, Bhagwan's name has that potency that by chanting Bhagwan's name, anything can get purified. It is actually said that Jiva, we have Purusha, Prakriti, and you have Jiva, right? So, Jiva is actually superior to Prakriti. Prakriti is matter, which has actually no life. It is Jiva which has life. But actually, it is the Jiva which is in a conditional state is why it gets engulfed in Prakriti. So the only way to come out of this connection of Prakriti is for the Jiva is to chant Bhagavan's name. There are some, of course, today as it is important to know is the disappearance day of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So there are some important aspects to be talked even with this shloka, right? Bhakti Vinod Thakur has talked about Dashamula Tattva. There are 10 fundamental truths actually, which Bhakti Vinod Thakur has said. And he has written about this. So it's Amnaya Praha Tattvam Harim Iha Paramam Sarva Saktim Rasabdhim Tad Bhinam Cha Jivan Prakriti Kavalitan Tad Vimuktam Cha Bhavat Bheda Bheda Prakasham Sakalam Api Hare Sadhanam Sudha Bhaktim Sadhyam tat pratimevati upadishati jnanam gaura chandra swayam saha. So, as we know, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has propounded Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy, and Dashamula Tattvam, he talks about 10 important Tattvams. So the first is Amnaya Vakyam, is the principal evidence that Bhagwan is the Supreme Personality. Hari, the second Tattvam is Hari is the form of Krishna, is the supreme truth in this world. The third is he is the possessor of all energies. Fourth, he is the ocean of nectarian rasa. Fifth, all the jivatas are Vibhinamsa Tattva, separated parts of Hari. As we know, there is only one Purusha. We say Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidanandam Vigraha. So there is only one Parama Purusha, one supreme truth, Purushottamaha. We say in Vedam, it says Sahasra Shisa Purushaha. So there is only one Purusha and everyone is three Prakriti. So we jivas are all Vibhinnamsam Tattva, which means we are just part and parcel. In our bound condition, the jivas are under all the influence of matter due to their marginal position. So as he said, the jivatma has the same quality as Bhagavan, but in quantity it's not the same. So that's why it is said the jiva is actually superior to Prakriti. But because of our conditional and marginal state is why we become inferior in association with matter. Just like, for example, today we have this body due to some form of karma, whether it may be man, woman, child, animal, fish. But the moment you quit your body, actually your jivatma is pure. It is only that realization, that is why it is said, taught from a young age, that Atato Brahma Jigyasaha, from a child state one should know the difference between one's body and one's spirit. Because only with that one can understand the reality of karma. And without understanding this philosophy that there is Bhagavan, there is Purusha, there is Prakriti, and there is karma, is only when we will be able to surrender. So like in this shloka, Arjuna said that he did not want to fight in the battlefield of Kurukshetra because for his own desire. So the one aspect of surrender for Bhagavan is Anukulya Sankalpasya, means doing that which is favorable to Bhagavan, not what is favorable to us. Our desire or favorable is there, but that is not called Anukula Sankalpasya. It is giving up things which are not favorable. And Pratikulpa Varjanam, which means that which is favorable to Bhagavan. So what Arjuna did is Pratikulpa Varjanam, and that is that surrender. So only when we come to that initial state of Anukula Sankalpasya and Pratikulpa Varjanam, we actually go towards the state of surrender. So in their liberated condition, the jivas are all freed from this influence of matter due to their intrinsic marginal nature. The jivas and the entire material creation are both identical to and different from Sri Hari. That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says is Achintya Beda Beda Tattvam, simultaneous oneness and difference. Pure bhakti is the sadhana of jivas, and pure love for Krishna is the goal for jivas. It is said that irrespective of one's state of mind or condition, the natural position of any jivatma is to actually service and love Bhagavan. It is only due to our covering in this material body that we forget it. Just like the child, when it is in the womb of the mother, it realizes its transcendental nature and it prays to Bhagavan. And it is Bhagavan who protects the child in the womb. Of course, according to different karma, some may be born in different place. So many times people question this, that Krishna is giving us difficulty. No, the answer is wrong. It is we desire to take such body, and we have desired ourselves to put ourselves in a situation. So for those who don't understand this, the cycle of birth and death will continue. But only when one understands that there is Bhagavan and we have to surrender, then this change of process occurs. To talk a little bit more about this Dashamula Tattvam, right? The Amnaya Vakyat Mula Pramanam, it says the statements of the Vedas are the foundational evidence, right? So we know in Mukunda Upanishad, it is said that Brahma Devanam Prathamam Sambhuva Vivasya Karta Bhuvanasya Gopta Sa Brahma Vidyam Sa Sarvidya Pratishtam Atarvaya Jeshta Putraya Praha Yenaksharam Purusham Veda Sattvam Pravachatat Tatvito Brahma Vidyam So Brahma, the first Deva, the universal creator and maintainer of the world, taught Brahma Vidya to Atharva, his eldest son. He taught that Brahma Vidya through the true form that eternal personality can be truly understood. So we see this knowledge of transcendental thing is first given to Bhagavan, by Bhagavan to Brahma itself. Similarly, like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna that Imam Vivasvate Yogwan, which means he taught this first science of Bhagavad Gita to the sun god Vivaswan, and then it follows further. So we can see that Vedescha Sarver Aham Eva Vedyo, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that he is the source of all Vedam. So there are innumerable shlokas which explain the statement that Bhagavan is supreme. The second is Sri Krishna is the supreme Tattvam. So obviously Swayam Bhagavan Krishna Sarvasya Sarvasraya Parama Ishvara Krishna Sarvasastrekaya. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talks in Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? So he himself has incarnated as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he is the supreme truth. Krishna Sarva Shakti Sampanna. Sri Krishna possesses all potencies. So we know Aishwaryasya Samagrayasya Viryasya Yatashriya Jnana Vairagyayaschaiva Sannam Bhaga Itingana. So Bhagavan is one who possesses 6 opulences is complete. All strength, all wealth, all fame, all knowledge, all wisdom, all renunciation. We may see different Devatas and Adi Devatas may possess different potencies. But there is only one as Bhagavan who possesses all potencies in full, without any tinge, without any contamination. So this is what his definition is Bhagavan. In today's world, many people use the word Bhagavan, but one who has, those are all terminologies people use. If Shastra doesn't conform to someone being mentioned as Bhagavan, then that is just a title. Anyone can call himself President of United States, but that does not make him become President. You have to be clarified, and in the material world, the example you can say someone has to be voted, one has to be certified. So in the Vedam certifies that. That is what it is. So Krishna I Akhila Rasamrita Samudra. Sri Krishna is the ocean of all rasas. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur does write this. Raso vaisa rasam hi evyam labdhavanadi bhavati kohi evanyat kah pranyat yadesha akasa anando nyasat esha hi evandyayati. The Param Tattva is rasa. The Jiva attains bliss by obtaining this rasa. Who would make endeavors with their physical body and prana? If this undivided principle of personified bliss did not exist, he gives that bliss to all. So there is a understanding that you can attain bliss in this material body. We can attain temporary bliss. We may experience bliss by eating things. We may experiencing things by buying objects of material opulence. But the true bliss is unalloyed love and unalloyed devotional service. You can serve material people in this world, but it only lasts as long as this body lasts. And there is always some desire of karma or some desire. The example given is of gopis. They did not desire anything. Sabari did not desire anything from Rama. She only gave her bitten fruits just to see pleasure of Sri Rama. That is called akamaha. It is even higher than moksha kamaha. The desire to only worship Bhagavan and see him happy. The best material example can be given in this world is a mother's love for her child, which is without any expectation of return. That is the most unalloyed, purest way we can describe. You can say in the animal world or the human world. That is the most purest one can say. So we should aspire for that kind of worship and devotion to Bhagavan. It is perfectly okay. In the previous shlokas, Sukadev Goswami says, people will worship Adi Devatas for desires. People will worship Bhagavan. After all, if you have difficulty, who do you go to? You have to go to your Supreme Father, right? When we are children, you have difficulty, you go to your mother and father. Today when we, people say, why we say this Jivatma is body and everything. You may see yourself in the mirror. You are the same person you were at 5 years. You are the same person you are at 10 years, and you are the same person at 50 years. So, but the point is, you are still the same person. So similarly, when the child is young, it asks for its mother. Similarly, when you grow up, you may ask your parents, but ultimately you have Bhagavan. So that's why people come to ask Bhagavan for difficulties. So one should not, there's an important thing to take in these slokas. As Bhagavatas, we should not look down upon people who go to pray to Bhagavan for difficulties or Adi Devatas. That is a very wrong misconception. Because Bhaunam Janmanam Ante Jnanamam Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Samatmasu Durlabaha. It takes countless human births for one to surrender to Vasudeva. Actually, it is not one Janmam. It is Bhaunam Janmanam Ante Jnanamam Mam Prapadyate. So if one thinks that in one life only we have come to worship Lord Krishna, that is a misunderstanding. We have taken countless births as different animals, plants and jivas and other living beings, and then come as human being. So it takes time, and countless human births is when one realizes. So in Vedic, that's why in Vedic philosophy we should not look down, because looking down is a flaw which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will say is against the philosophy of Tranadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahisuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. So Jiva Sakala Harira Vibhirimsa Tattva. The Jivas are separated expansions of Hari. So obviously, as we have seen, that Jivas, unfortunately due to the desires, we are forced to take bodies. We may look today like this because of a previous desire. As Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita, that whatever you desire, I give you that kind of body. So that is the reality. So what we desire, we attain in this life, and associated karma with it. So what we have to understand is how actually we separate ourselves from being attached to this bodily conception, and how do we surrender to Lord Sri Krishna. That is the most important thing. Tathastha dharma vasata jiva bhada dasaya maya kavalitaha. Due to his intrinsic marginal potency, the jiva in his state of conditioning is prone to be captured by maya. And why is this? Is because of this conditional state, we tend to disassociate ourselves with Bhagavan. We think we have become powerful or independent. Just like, for example, Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita, Chatur Vidha Bhajante Mam. You only have 4 kinds of people who come to him. Artharthi, Jigyaso, people who are in need, people who have knowledge, people who need wealth. Only when people are in difficulty, people may come to Bhagavan, or to worship, whether some Adi Devata or Devata, doesn't matter. When someone has everything, they will not come to worship anything, right? Of course, once you come to the higher realization that you have something and you surrender, you will come to Bhagavan to serve him with love. That is a different realization. But generally, people who are completely attached to material desire, they have no reason to come. Only in difficulties they will come. But Bhagavan wants them to come. That is why difficulties are there. If everything was all there, this material world is dukhalayam ashashvatam. And we ourselves, there's a question sometimes people say is that why Bhagavan has created this world like this. No, it is our desire is what caused us to create this world. It is our desire. Difficulties in our life are created by us, our desires, not by Bhagavan. It is completely wrong. And the other question is this: can Bhagavan absolve all karma? He could. But even in Mahabharata, only 5 people survived the whole Mahabharata war, only Pandavas. Everyone was gone, pretty much. So, a lot of people were also saw Krishna in the battlefield. Many people knew. Even, for example, the Pandavas, they lost their sons. In spite they were so Bhagavatas. So, surrender to Bhagavan gives us to bear difficulties in life. Not saying that is against Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy, or what he says is Ashlishya va padaratam va pinashtumam. So it means that whether you reject me or keep me, I will still be your devotee. That should be the understanding of a Bhagavata, is that we should surrender to him. Whether good or bad things may happen, we should still be fortunate that we have shelter. The eighth thing is tathastha ghatana vasataha jiva mukta dasaya prakriti muktaha. The jiva's natural marginal constitution is to be a liberated condition freed from material desire. So you can see in these tattvas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained that how our life should be conformed to understanding that we are jivas and we are subordinate, and our goal is to serve Bhagavan with love. Without that, this whole material universe, we will continue going through the cycle of birth and death. There's another one thing which I would like to say is, what is all the goal of all this? Is achievement of the lotus feet of the Lord. Because for a normal person, achievement in material world is considered having, you may have desire for career, house, everything. It is perfectly fine. You may have normal desires to be successful in life as long as it is dovetailed towards the service of Krishna. But the ultimate goal after this human life is actually attainment of his lotus feet. So it says that Tasmat tu Vrajabhavanam Krishna Nama Gunat Manam Gunair Jadya Makhai Saswat Sadrishyam Upalakshate. Krishna's names, qualities and forms have a similarity, to everything in this material world. It means that whatever we chant Krishna's name, his potency is already there. Namna Makari Bauda Nijasarva Saktihi. It means that every potency of Bhagavan is infested in his material name. By only chanting his name itself, one can attain bliss. One can do service to his feet. And that is the real goal. So, one should understand that material life is a journey. And the purpose of this journey is perfectly okay. One may be educated, one may have career, one may get married, one may have children. It is perfectly okay with those things. But one should surrender the result to Krishna. One should make sure that he is the cause of all causes. It is for his pleasure. It is perfectly okay that the best way I can give an example is, if the father gives, some money to the child to buy a chocolate, the child may go buy a sweet or a chocolate, but the father doesn't need it. So he may give the child may buy the sweet or chocolate to the father, you enjoy it first, but the father says, it's okay, you can enjoy. That is the most simplest example I can give is, Bhagavan does want us to be happy. The conception, it's not that Dukhalayam Bashashvatam means we have to be unhappy here. We also are supposed to be happy. But happiness is not considered to be temporary. It should be towards service of his feet. And in addition, maintaining everything which is part of karma. The other thing which I want to talk is actually, today is also the disappearance day of Gadadhar Pandit, right? And today is Amavasya. So we know that so is the disappearance of Gadadhar Pandit along with Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So actually, it is very difficult to perceive the sweet will of Sri Gauranga if we can just lift ourselves to that level. But, Swarup Damodara Das, who is a devotee of Lord Chaitanya, and Gadadhar Pandit actually are always engaged in the service. So Gadadhar Pandit is actually, of course, one of the 5 tattvas in the Pancha Tattva, and he is the expansion of Srimati Radharani. And it is said that he is superior to Krishna himself. Why? Because Radharani or Gadadhar Pandit wanted to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He wanted to go to Vrindavana, Brajabhumi, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised him, Gadadhar Pandit, to stay actually in Navadipa, in Godruma Dham, and basically where he wanted him to serve the Dham itself. So Gadadhar Pandit is called Radha Bhava Dyuti Suvalitam. So the entire wealth of Srimati Radharani's feelings, her sentiments, her mood, and even her luster were taken by Krishna. So Radharani voluntarily gave up all these things. So after all, they are one and the same. So Gadadhar Pandit, the emptiness that we find in Gadadhar Pandit, he is running after Mahaprabhu. as his shadow. So that's why we see that Gadadhar Pandit is always close to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in his mood of separation of Srimati Radharani, he is always hankering for the association of Krishna. It is actually his wealth which has actually given Chaitanya Mahaprabhu this dignified position actually. Also, we can see that the eternal pastimes, just like in Vrajabhumi, the eternal pastimes always take place in Navadip Dham. So sometimes they are underground or invisible to us. Even in today's world, pastimes in Vraja do take place, right? Things may look very modern from externally, but the way to apply this is Cheto Darpana Marjanam. If you cannot clean your heart, you cannot find the beauty of Vrajabhumi soil. The Vrajabhumi soil may look very modern today, it may not look soft, it may look contaminated. But this, just the same example I would say, the sun's rays are always purifying. So devotional service or creeper of devotional service is what actually one which purifies one's heart. So that is why it is said that Anukulya Sankalpasya Pratikulpa Varjanam. So purifying one's heart by chanting Krishna's name is what can one elevate one to actually see how sweet he is. So we can see that Gadadhar Pandit, of course, as expansion of Srimati Radharani, always is in the mood of separation to actually understand what Radharani feels for Krishna. Krishna always was in Vraja, and the gopis, they always stayed in Vrindavana. Their mood is of separation. Even Krishna only stayed for 12 years and he left Vrindavana. But the gopis were always thinking of him, right? Even Mother Yashoda, all the gopas and gopis. This is the real bhava of devotional service. Devotional service is by association, but real aspect is mood of separation. You only remember someone more when they are not closely beside you. And this is the highest state. Of course, it takes time to come to this. You cannot force this. It has to come naturally. That is why we see all different Bhagavatas and devotees have chanted and written so many songs of how one should actually chant Krishna's name. Only by chanting Bhagavan's name one gets purified. This is the real goal of life. We can have material opulences, we can have desires, which is natural part of life. But we cannot build castles. If you go to a beach and if you build castles, on the seashore, at night it will wash away. So human life is like that. We may be a child, we may born, we may get educated, we may have careers, we may be very successful in life, but one should aspire what is towards the end of life, right? One cannot think like many people say we can, at the end of the life I will think of Bhagavan. That is also perfectly fine. But there is no guarantee of when one can quit one's life. Only Bhagavan knows it. That is why in our Vedic culture is why from a childhood it is taught to the child that Atato Brahma Jigyasa, why one should worship to Bhagavan, why one should bow down to Bhagavan, why should one should go to the temple, why should one worship his lotus feet. This is the real purpose of bhakti, is actually eventually to reach to him. So that's why we say that surrender to the lotus feet of Krishna, Sarva Dharma Paritagyam Mamekam Saranam Vrajaha. It means surrender to his feet. Whatever we do in this offering, in this life, we may have a career, we may have a job, we may have family, we may have health. Everything is his. The best example is Draupadi, right? She had everything and in a snap, everything went away due to gambling. And when she was about to be disrobed, the only person who protected her was Krishna. And that protection only comes is when she was being disrobed. Initially she held on to one hand in her sari and Krishna didn't come. And you let go only both of your hands. That is surrender. Surrender means full surrender. You cannot doubt. Just like a child. The child doesn't know. The best example is given is the tiger or the lion lifts its cub by its mouth. That is called the best material example you can give is the cub is fully surrendered. It doesn't care how its mother is going to lift it. It knows its mother will take care. The same thing as Jivatma, we should have faith that Bhagavan will come to protect us. Just like Prahlada, he says, Stambhe avataral stamanam yalagyam, means where in the pillar he can come from. Hiranyakashipu was asked, right, are you in this pillar, in that pillar? And Prahlada said, yes. That is that faith, that if Bhagavan is there, he will come for us. Of course, it takes time to come to this stage, but we should purify, chant his name, serve him. Whatever we may do at our home, at our temple, in our home we worship, focus that as our life. Without that surrender, we cannot develop that faith. It is said that faith and surrender come. Some people will question, how do I develop faith? Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. Just like a child believes in its mother. After all, he is the Parama Purusha. So that's what we would say. So I will end today's class. I can go on for more, but I think I've touched on points today for the Shlokam and what is Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Gadadhar Pandit. So if any questions, I will happily take it. I guess no questions. Okay. Okay. Grandraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.